Okay, let's start today's reading. Yesterday we only did a little bit because this paragraph is too hard for me. Then I found out my Chinese version and read it. You know what? Even Chinese version is not that easy. It's talking about a lot of writers about their drama. So this is not easy for me to not to understand, but those those name I know Fu Shide, I know Goethe, and the others, I don't know them at all. So I need to read. I really, really need to read. Um, I read a lot, but still it's not enough. So a lot of they talk about it, these people, this drama, like this. I don't know what they are talking about. So let's go to the normal thing. So just skip this paragraph. I know these things in there, but I don't need to, learn uh, words by words to understand it. It's don't need to like that. But I know the basic meaning about the paragraph. I think uh, that's all. And yesterday I draw a picture, mm, a little dog, not mine, little dog. I draw a little dog. I hope one day I can draw my two girls. I have two golden retrievers. So let's see. Uh, okay. Oh, okay. Let's begin. Oh, yesterday I think another thing is yesterday I'm hungry and thirsty. Today I've already warm up a cup of milk and drank it, and I prepare bottle of a bottle of boiled water. Today we can read more. Now it's 7. My daughter maybe she will have her classes around thing. When when she need to have lesson, then we'll stop. I will drink a lot. Maybe I need to go to the bathroom in the middle. Okay, let's read. This paragraph, we just skip it. So they're talking about, let's go to past master. He had, and that past master. Yes, I tell you, young people, that before the 18th century is out, I tell you, young people, that before the 19th century is out, Wagner, I know Wagner, but I don't know what um, the he wrote. I told you, young people, that before the 19th century is out, Wagner will be as dead as mutton. I want to know what mutton. Mutton. Oh, yeah. I think about. I recall it. 羊肉. Oh, as dead as mutton. 羊肉是不是也当羊啊？绵羊，羊肉。 Wagner. I would give all his work for one opera for another one. And we can go. He had seen, and that past master, past master 集合 past master 检阅。Let's see past master, and that past 及格。past master means 及格。This one don't. Past master means 及格。Okay, he had seen that one, and that past master. It was dull, but not worse. But this one, when he mentioned it, Professor Erling, when he mentioned it, Professor Erling leaned his head on his hand, leaned his head like this. Okay, lean his, oh no, 这样 lean his head on his hand and blow with laughter. Blow with laughter and blow with laughter. Let's see. 大声喝道，发出吼叫声，大叫，发出大而有力的声音。So 大叫，发出大而有力的声音。So blow with laughter, just laugh, I think. Not a melody in it from beginning to end. Not a melody in it. He could imagine Richard Wagner laughing till his side ached at the sight of all the people who were taking it seriously. It was the greatest hoax of 18th century. Greatest hoax, not hoax, hoax. Hoax, 骗局。It was the greatest hoax of the 19th century. He lifted his glass of beer to his lip, threw back his head, and drank till the glass was empty. In Chinese version, they translate as 一饮而尽. I don't know, just feel something not that the words want to explain. Then wiping his mouth with the back of his hand. We can back a little more. Professor Erling classed him with Richard Wagner, but of him he spoke not with good humor laughter. He was a charlatan, but a charlatan. Yeah, I think it's charlatan. Charlatan. Let's see. Yesterday we checked it. Yeah, this is charlatan. Great.
Charlatan.
Charlatan. Not stupid. I remember things. Charlatan. 骗子. Charlatan. He was a charlatan, but a successful charlatan. And in that was always something for the comic spirit to rejoice in. A madman. The play was The Door Horse and the author. And the author was what? I don't know. No, Helen, I tell you this, he shouted. I would sooner my daughter were laying dead at my feet than seeing them listening to the garbage. Shelf this fellow. I saw the door horse. Not that bad. I think maybe from you know this culture, the culture of this day, this really acceptable. But that day maybe not. I don't know. Um, let's see, and we can go back a little bit. He shook his fist at her. He was the midst of Crete, and ventured upon no action, of his wife without consulting her. Ventured upon no action of his wife without consulting her. Without consulting her. Calm yourself, sighed Professor from the other hand. Frau Professor from the other hand uh, of the table. Let's go back a little bit. Yes, I want to just skip it, but now after I read the Chinese version, it's easier to understand. I can just skip those names. Let's go back. Go all back here. Okay. Professor Erling gave Philip a lesson every day. He make out a list of books, turn it into black, then we'll find okay. Professor Erling gave Philip a lesson every day. He make out a list of books which Philip was to read till he was ready for the final achievement of Fuster. Yes. Till he was ready, he was ready for the final achievement of Foster. 浮士德 That's 浮士德 No. 浮士德 No. Okay. 浮士德Okay. 浮士德浮士德 in ingeniously enough, ingeniously enough, translation of ingenious enough. Let's see. Let's read this in here. I think it is some, yes. I think we read ingenious enough. And 别出心裁的。ingenious enough, start him on a， 那我觉得 not 别出心裁的 ingenious， like let's see ingeniously 有才能的、贤明的、独特的，有天才的。ingenious
ingenious,
enough, start with him。我觉得是 ingenious， 因为他已经学过because Philip already know it, so that's the good thing to learn.
ingenious,
Ingeniously, and meanwhile, ingeniously enough. It's really ingenious. Why? Sounds like the Chinese version sounds like they say the opposite word. No. Started him on a German translation of one of the plays by Shakespeare which Philip had studied at school. Yes, that's very good. That's a good idea, you know. It was the period in German of Goethe's Hest fame. Oh, now I know this sentence. This was the period in Germany of Goethe's Hest fame. Notwithstanding his rather condescending attitude, patriotism, he had been adopted as the nation poet, and since 尽管 his rather 鄙视 condescending 虚就 condescend condescend condescend
condescend,
condescend
condescend,
condescend
condescend,
condescend 虚尊的态度，虚尊表示和蔼气。Notwithstanding his rather condescending attitude towards patriotism, he had been adopted as the national poet. National poet, and seemed to be one of the most significant glory of national unity. National unity. Unity.
unity,
unity, national unity, and seemed since the War of 70 to be one of the most significant glory national unity. The enthusiastic seemed in the wilderness of to hear the rattle of artillery. Okay, but one mark of the writer's greatness is that different men can find in him. But one mark of writer's greatness is that different men can find in him different inspiration. And Professor Erling, who hated Prussians, gave his enthusiastic admiration to Goethe because his work, Olympian and Sanded, offered the only refuge for a sane man against the onslaught of the present generation. Let's see the Chinese version a little bit. Oh, I need a bookmark, and I don't need to find it all the time. Okay, let's see.哦，他说，可是，一名作家的标志是不同的人可以从他的作品的灵感。憎恨普鲁士人的厄宁教授狂热地崇拜歌德，因为他的著作既威严又严肃。Because his work, opinion and seeded. I don't know. The opinion and seeded. Let's see. Seeded. Yeah, it's seeded. We checked yesterday. Opinion maybe 宏大的意思。不是 not Olympian
Olympian,
Let's see, only Olympian 庄严的。Great. 庄严的，神圣的，庄严的。Olympian, not Olympian. Olympian.
Olympian,
庄严的，庄严又沉静，不是威严又严肃。No. Offer the only refuge for the sane man. Sane. 神志正常的。Sane. I should know how to read it because it's just sane. This is the classic. No. 标准的。Okay, that's it. Sane. 心智、神志清醒的。 明智的，明智的，清醒的，神志清醒的。So, offer the only refuge, 庇护所。Offer the only refuge for refugee, refuge. Let's see. Yeah, refuge. Offer the only refuge for the seamen against the onslaughts of the present generation. Onslaught. Onslaught.
onslaught,
Onslaught.
onslaught, onslaught,
Onslaught. Onslaught. 猛攻。Onslaught. Against the onslaught of the present generation. There was a dramatist whose name of late had been much heard at Heidelberg, and the writer before one of his plays had been given at the theatre amid cheers of a maid 之中，在什么什么之中 ？Amid, yes, amid the cheers of adherent 拥护者。Let's see, adherent。哦，这的发音呢 ？adherent,
adherent,
adherent,
adherent, adherent,
yeah，在那儿吗？支持者 ，adherent。支持者 amid the cheers of adherent and the hisses of decent people, amid the cheers of adherent amid the cheers of the amid the cheers of the adherent and the hisses of decent people. Philip heard discussions about it at the professor's long table. Philip heard discussions about it at the professor's long table, and at this profession Eileen lost her wonted calm. wanted 习惯的、惯常的 wanted calm。我觉得就是翻译成惯常的。IP X NX 惯常的。this part is X. Now I know this part is X. 惯常的 calm. Lost his wonted calm. He beat the table with his fist and drawn all opposition with the roar, and drawn and drowned all opposition with the roar of his fine deep voice. It was nonsense and obscene nonsense. It was nonsense and obscene nonsense. Obscene 更远的、更大的 obscene 下流的、大的、惊人的。
Obscene.
Obscene, not obscene 下流的、大的、惊人的。Nonsense and obscene nonsense 大惊人的，下流的，等等等等。Obscene nonsense. It was nonsense. It was nonsense and obscene nonsense. He forced himself to sit the play out, but he was more bored or nor seated. Let's see, it's no see. Nauseate.
Nauseate.
Let's see, nauseated. Nauseated. Nauseated.
Nauseated.
Nauseated. Nauseated. 作呕的。作呕的。Nauseated. He was bored or nauseated, if that was what the theater was coming to. Nauseated. He was more bored or nauseated, if that was what the theater was coming to. Then it was high time the police stepped in. If that was what the theater was coming to, then it was high time the police stepped in and closed the playhouse. If that was what the theater was coming to, then it was high time step in and close the playhouse. He was no prude and he was no prude. He was no prude, 大惊小怪的。And as anyone at the witty immorality of a farce at the Roy, but there was nothing but filth. Yeah, if only, yeah, you know, witty in immorality of a farce, that's okay. But nothing, only if it was nothing but filthy, it's disgusting. Nothing but filth, it's really disgusting. With an emphatic gesture, he held his nose and whistled through his teeth. With an emphatic. Let's see, is it right? I pronounce emphatic. E, not exact.
Emphatic.
Emphatic. With an emphatic gesture. He held his nose and whistled through teeth. I don't know. It was the ruin of the family, the uproot of Moro, the, the destruction of Germany. It was the ruin of the family, the uprooting of Moro, the destruction of Germany. It's so funny. The destruction of Germany, the uproot of Moro, 道德沦丧。Okay, we finished it. Great. I thought we just skip it. We didn't. That's good. The oldest of Philip's master was his teacher. The oldest of Philip's master was his teacher of French. This Monsieur Dacros. Monsieur Dacros was a citizen of Geneva. I don't know. Let's see. Geneva. Oh, yes, 日内瓦 Geneva 日内瓦日内瓦日内瓦 G N 呐，这是 N 呐。Okay. Was a citizen of Geneva. He was a tall old man with a sallow skin. Sallow, not shallow, 蜡黄色的 sallow. I think we already learned it in
Sallow.
A Little Princess, 蜡黄的 sallow skin. Maybe the Indian gentleman with sallow skin. With a sallow skin and a hollow cheek. Not 洞 I think 干瘪的空腹的 Okay. And hollow cheeks. His gray hair was thin and long. He wore shabby black clothes with holes at the elbow of his coat and frayed trousers. Frayed trousers. 破洞的不可能，褪色的 frayed 磨损的，磨破的 frayed.
Frayed.
磨损的。When I was a young child, we wear frayed clothes all the time. Yeah. We put tag on the clothes to sew it together. I don't know the word. Frayed trousers. His lining was very dirty. Philip had never seen him in a clean collar. He was a man of few words who gave his lesson conscientiously, but without enthusiasm. I like this pronunciation. 认真负责的。Conscientious.
conscientious,
conscientiously 认真负责的，conscientiously give his lesson, who gave his lesson conscientiously, but without enthusiasm, arriving at the clock struck and leaving on the minute. His charges were very small. He was taciturn, and Philip learned about taciturn, I think 少言寡语的 did we learn somewhere? Taciturn, I don't think so. Taciturn.
taciturn, taciturn,
He was taciturn. 沉默寡言，沉默寡言。Let's see 寡言。He was taciturn. And what Philip learned about him, and what he was taciturn, and what Philip learned about him, he learned from others. He was taciturn, and what Philip learned about him, he learned from others. It appeared that he had fought with Garibaldi, fought with Garibaldi against the Pope, but had left Italy in disgust when it was in disgust. Yeah. Let's see. 讨厌的，厌烦的。Left in disgust when it was clear that all his effort for freedom but had left Italy in disgust when it was clear that all his efforts for freedom, the establishment of a republic, tend to no more than an exchange of yoke. An exchange of yoke. Of yokes, 束缚。He had been expelled from Geneva. He had been expelled from Geneva, for it was not known that political offense. For it was not known what political. Philip looked upon him with puzzled surprise, for he was very unlike his idea of the revolutionary, for he was very unlike his idea of the revolutionary. He spoke in a low voice and was extraordinarily polite. He never sat down till he was asked to, and when he met Philip in the street, took off. Okay, and when on the street he met Philip in the street, he never sat down till he was asked to, and on rare occasion he met Philip in the street, took off his hat with an elaborate gesture. We learn these words a lot of time. 复杂的，竭力的做。Elaborate gesture.
Elaborate.
Elaborate gesture. 复杂的。精心制作的。In the street, took off his hat with an elaborate gesture. He never laughed. He never even smiled. A more complete imagination than Philip's might have use of splendid hope. A more complete imagination than Philip might have pictured a use of splendid hope, for he must have been entering upon manhood in 1848 when kings, remembering their brother of France, went about with an uneasy crick in their necks. For he upon manhood, when kings, remembering their, let's see what it. 因为他在那么，假如有谁比菲利普更拥有完美的想象力，那么就会想象杜克罗兹当年是一个前途无量的青年。A more complete imagination than Philip might have picture of use of a use of splendid hope, for he must have been entering upon manhood when talk about the history, I'm numb. Oh my God, I need to read this English history to understand this better. He never laughed. He never even smiled. A more complete imagination than Philip's might have pictured a use of splendid hope. For he must have been entering upon manhood in 1848 when kings, remembering their brother of France, went about with an uneasy crick in their necks. 绞刑架。抽筋。An easy crick in their neck. 诚惶诚恐的 uneasy with an uneasy crack. Let's see crack. 急性梗直，肌肉抽筋 uneasy crack in their neck. Crack in neck. Let's see. No. Uneasy crack in the perhaps that passion for liberty which passed through Europe, sweeping before it, and perhaps the passion for liberty which passed through Europe, sweeping before it, what of absolutism and had reared its head during the reaction from the Revolution of 1789, filled no breast with a hot fire. And let's see, it sighed. 也许席卷欧洲的那股渴望自由的热浪，正荡涤着他面前的诸如专制主义和暴政，这些1789年革命以后重新抬起头的反动逆流，在每个人的心中燃起更炙热的想象。他热心追求人类平等和人权理论，同别人讨论着、争辩着，在巴黎的街垒后面战斗，在米兰的奥地利骑兵面前驰骋，到处遭到监禁和放逐。他所期望和坚持的也还是那似乎具有魔力的两个字自由，直到最后他饥寒交迫你翻译的好奇怪呀。And perhaps that passion for liberty which passed through Europe, sweeping before it, what of absolutism, 集权的、专政的、暴政。I think absolutism 应该是集权的吧，专政主义 and 暴政。This is I think I read this from Jane I. She read a book about French Revolution. Yeah. 暴虐横行，暴行 tyranny tyranny 暴行。Before it, what of absolutism and tyranny had reared its head during the reaction from the Revolution of 1789, filled no breast of a hot fire. One might fancy him passionate with theories of human right, discussing arguing barricades in Paris, flying before the Austrian cavalry in Milan, um, im- imprisoned, imprisoned here, exiled from. Let's see what exiled. We learned it already. 放逐 It says exile, they, I. For the sometimes
exile,
when you don't
exile,
when you don't know how to read it, follow the simple rule. Exile. 放逐 放逐 So in prison here, exiled from there, hoping on and unbound ever with the world, which seemed no hoping on and up boom and upborn ever up
upborn,
被支撑着的，被举起的 upborn 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 hoping on and upborn ever with the word which seemed so magical, the word liberty. Yeah. Till at last, broken with disease and starvation, broken with disease and starvation, old without mean to keep body and soul together. To keep body, but such lessons as he could pick up from poor students. He found himself in that under the heel of a personal tyranny greater than any in Europe. He found himself in that under the heel of a personal tyranny greater than any in Europe. Till at last, broken with disease and starvation, old without mean to keep body and soul together, but yes, that's true though. You talk about the tyranny. You talk about the tyranny, the absolutism. I think it's a absolutism. Yeah, absolutism. Absolutism. Yeah. Now, at last, broken with disease and starvation, I think it's starvation. Yes, starvation. At last, broken with disease and starvation, old without means to keep body and sew together, but such lessons as he could pick up from poor students. He found himself in that little neat town under the heel of a personal uh, tyranny, under the heel of tyranny greater than any in Europe. Under the heel of personal 脚后跟，我们看一看 under the heel。Under the heel of a personal tyranny， 个人的暴行。Under the heel of蹂躏。OK， 这个翻译的真是挺好的。He found himself in that little under the heel of a personal tyranny. Under the heel， 它是个人的蹂躏，个人的暴行，针对个人的I think。Under the heel of a personal tyranny greater than any in Europe. Perhaps his taciturnity. Let's see. Taciturnity. Let's see. We already know taciturnity.
Taciturnity. Taciturnity. Taciturnity.
Perhaps his taciturnity had a contempt for the human race, which had abandoned the great dreams of his youth, wallowed in sluggish ease. Now, wallow 沉迷于
Wallow. Wallow.
sluggish ease.
Sluggish. Sluggish.
不激进，懒散的，懒散。sluggish is 沉迷。And now wallowed in sluggish ease. Or perhaps these 30 years of revolution had taught him that men are unfit for liberty. And he thought that this thing about China, people don't need liberty. They feel it's okay, but I'm out of China. Years ago, when I was in China, I feel it's not okay. There are no liberty. You can't say whatever you want. You can't, even we don't think about the government, it's still not okay. So I feel, you know, what's the word? You can't breathe. You can't breathe. And the people only see what government want they say. They only think what government want they think. They don't have liberty to do things, have liberty to think things. That's so terrible, you know? Yeah. So this is like sentence. Um, his his taciturnity. His taciturnity had a contempt for, had abandoned the great dream. I think that is what Chinese did. Chinese already abandoned the great dream about liberty and now wallowed in sluggish ease. Yes. Or perhaps these 30 years of revolution had taught him that men are unfit for liberty. Sometimes I think, is it China doesn't deserve liberty? It taught him that men are unfit for liberty. Thought that he had spent his life pursuit in the pursuit of that which was not worth defending. Or maybe he was tired out and waited only with indifference for the release of death. Oh, that's not good. Or maybe he was tired out and waited only with indifference for the release of death. One day Philip, with the bluntness of his age, one day Philip, with the bluntness of his age, asked him if it was true he had been with Garibaldi. Okay,巴黎公社, no, not that way. One day Philip, with the bluntness of his age, blunt, 傻乎乎的 bluntness, 不明智的、迟钝的、率直。你可以说率直，你也可以说迟钝啊。Blunt 就是那种 you feel something wrong, yeah. Bluntness of his age asked him if it was true he had been with Garibaldi. I think 加里波第 Garibaldi. I forgot about it. The old man didn't seem to attach any importance to the question. He answered quite quietly in as low voice as usual. Qui, monsieur? They say you were in the commune. Do they? Shall we go on with our work? Commune, 公社 with the commune. The old man didn't seem to attach any importance to the question. He answered quite quietly. He answered quite quietly in as low a voice as usual. 然后慢条斯理，像往常一样 安静，像往常一样非常安静而低沉，而用低低的声音回答说Yeah. He held the book open. He held the book open, and Philip, intimidated, began to translate. Intimidated. He held the book open. And Philip, intimidated, began to translate the passage he had prepared. One day, Monsieur Ducrose seemed to be in great pain. He had been scarcely in great pain. He had been scarcely dragged. He had been scarcely able to drag himself. Let's see what they translate back this thing is. 你看他费好大劲儿才爬上来，那是 drag. He had been scarcely able to drag himself up. Drag himself. 拖着疲惫的，怎么样？把自己 drag himself up the many stairs to Philip's room. He had been scarcely able to drag himself up the many stairs to Philip's room, and when he arrived, sat down. And when he arrived, sat down heavily, his sallow face drawn, with beads of sweat on his forehead, trying to recover himself. I'm afraid you are ill. Can you hear my dog? I'm afraid you are ill, said Philip. It's of no consequence. It's of no consequence. But Philip saw that he was suffering, and at the end of the hour asked whether he would not prefer to give no more lessons till he was better. No, said the old man in his even, low voice. I prefer to go on while I'm able. Philip, morbidly nervous when he had to make any reference to money, reddened. Morbidly nervous. Morbidly 病态 morbid 我们在哪还讲到了 morbid 也是说它是病态的 Philip morbidly nervous when he had to make any reference to money reddened. But it won't make any difference to you, he said. I will pay for the lessons just the same. If you won't mend, I would like to give you the money for next week in advance. He's a good child, no, a good boy. But it won't make any difference to you, he said. I will pay for the lessons just the same. If you would like to give you the money for next week in advance, 先付 in advance. Monsieur Ducros charged 18 pence an hour. Charged 18 pence an hour. Charged. Ducros charged 18 pence an hour. Philip took a 10-mark piece out of his pocket. Charged 18 pence. Charged 18 pence an hour. Charged. Monsieur Duck charged 18 pence an hour. Philip took a 10-mark piece out of his pocket and shyly put it on the table. He could not bring himself to offer it as if the old man were a beggar. You know, the dignity of Western people. I have to say, the dignity of Western people. I think the dignity from old time. Yes, from old time. That is why Chinese can't compare with you. They like the we ask for oh that's just forgot it. This make me feel sometimes Chinese like something in China, government pay money or give benefit to poor people. So that is for poor people, that's for poor people. But in China, those things, government should give to poor people. They have been grabbed away, rob away. I think I should use this word, rob away by rich people. Why? Because rich people, they have power to apply for this thing, and the poor people, they don't have the power to apply this. And in China, they really do this. They call something called economic economy. No, economic horse, economic horses for poor people. So this horse, not horse like in Western country, it's apartment, all apartment. We lived in apartment in China. Most people live in apartment in China. So those apartments should, give to those poor people. They can buy it with a small amount of money. It's good for poor people. You see that. But the rich people, they apply for this and they grab all of these things from those poor people. That's so bad. And they don't feel ashamed about it. They feel power. They feel, oh, you see, I can get it because I have the power. They don't need it, but they do this. This is really bad. I don't know. In Western country, these things happen. But in China, I know it. That's so bad. And I feel ashamed about those rich people. They use their power, manipulate poor people. You know, that's so unfair. So in China, there is a word, a saying, rich people richer, poor people they make themselves poorer and poorer. Of course, because rich people they use their power to get money, and poor people they live for nothing. That's so bad. But oh my God, this is just and you see Chinese most I don't know most or not because um, my level Chinese they very satisfied with their living. They don't see the unfair thing. They don't see the poor people. They don't know because you see we live we live with our group, you know, not with those poor people. So we don't know at all. So bad. In that case, I think I won't come again till I'm better. He took the cone and without anything more than the elaborate bow with which he always took his leave, went out. Bonjour, monsieur. Philip was vaguely disappointed, thinking he had done a generous thing. He had expected that Monsieur Dacros would overwhelm, don't think that, would overwhelm him with expression of gratitude, would over him with expression of gratitude. Aback to find that he was taken aback to find that the old teacher accepted the present as though it was his due. He was there, he was young. He didn't realize how much less is the sense of obligation in those who receive favors than in those who grant them. He didn't realize how much lies is the sense of obligation in those who receive favor than in those who grant them. He didn't realize how much lies in the sense of okay. He didn't realize how much lies in sense of obligation in those who receive favors than in those who grant them. Um, 受惠者和知恩图报的心理比施惠者要淡薄得多。受惠者知恩图报的心理比施惠者要淡薄得多。How much less is the sense of obligation, the sense of obligation in those who receive favors than in those who grant them? The sense of obligation, obligation I always think is 义务, so something to obligation, 义务责任恩惠哦，还当恩惠讲。 The sense of obligation. The sense of obligation. 义务感、恩惠感。你看，义务。义务。恩惠。恩惠。GJ。这样 ，really? Okay. 恩惠 the sense of obligation. I think yes, sometimes this is like this. But I feel obligation to my sister. I obligation to my sister all the time because she helps me a lot, you know. If without her, I will be in big trouble. And she always helped me. And my mom and my brother, yeah, I think they all helped me a lot with my life recently. That's good for me. Without them, my life will be different. I will be, I would, but for now, yeah. Monsieur Dacros appeared again 4 or 6 days later. He tottered a little more. He tottered. Tottered. 蹒跚. He tottered a little more and was very weak, but seemed to have overcome the severity of the attack. Overcome the severity of the attack. He was no more communicative than he had been before. He was no more communicative. 那咱们怎么教课呀 ？How to teach your student without communicative?
Communicative.
对了 communicative. He was no more communicative than he had before. He was the taciturn. He was taciturn, and now let's see, is it taciturn? I think taciturn. Yes, great. He was taciturn, and now he was no more communicative than he had been before. He remained mysterious, aloof, and dirty. Aloof, we learned it from the Little Princess. 冷淡的，疏远的 ，yes，疏远的。Aloof. Where is aloof? Yes, 疏远的。疏远的。 No. We'll check it later. He made no reference to his illness till after the lesson, and then, just as he was leaving at the door which he held open, he paused. He hesitated, as though to speak very difficult. If it hadn't been for the money you give me, I should have starved. It was all I had to live on. He made his solemn, obsequious bow. Solemn, obsequious bow. Uh, elaborate. Is it the same meaning? Is it elaborate? Obsequious，卑躬屈膝的。卑躬屈膝的，卑躬屈膝，算了，卑躬屈膝的 ，R-T-N-E，那个是 elaborate，great。Obsequious，卑躬屈膝的 bow elaborate. He made his solemn, obsequious, obsequious. This is, life is hard, so he had to, he made his solemn, obsequious bow and went out. Philip felt a little lump in his throat. Philip felt a little lump in his throat. He seemed to realize in a fashion the hopeless bitterness. He seemed to realize in a fashion the hopeless bitterness of the old man's struggle, and how hard life was for him, when to himself it was so pleasant. And how hard life was for him, when to himself it was so pleasant. Philip had spent 3 months in Heidelberg when one morning the Frau Professor told him that an Englishman named Hayward was coming to stay in the house. And the same evening at supper, he saw a new face. Philip had spent 3 months in Heidelberg when one morning the Frau Professor told him that an Englishman named Hayward was coming to stay in the house, and the same evening at supper he saw a new face. For some days the family had lived in a state of excitement. First, as the result of heaven knows that scheming. First, as the result of heaven knows that scheming. scheming 图表密谋 scheming 密谋 okay what scheming scheme we just copy this down
Scheme.
then we know 密谋 what scheme 密谋 what scheming by dint of humble prayer by dint of humble prayer by dint of 什么什么的结果 by dint 什么什么的结果 by dint of 什么的什么的结果 by dint of humble prayers and veiled threat veil 隐蔽的 veil 是那个面纱的意思吧？面纱哦，是的，隐蔽的面纱，隐蔽的 no 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 隐蔽的 veiled 这个是面纱，用面纱遮盖，用面纱遮盖，用面纱遮盖 no 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 遮盖 humble prayers and veiled threat. The parents of the young Englishman to whom Fräulein Thekla was engaged had invited her to visit them in England, and she had set off with an album of watercolor to show how accomplished. Oh, I know this meaning from Pride and Prejudice. How accomplished she was, and a bundle of letters to prove how deeply the young man had compromised himself. Promise 是妥协、折中、conquered. To prove how deeply the young man had compromised 陷入危险，使自己陷入。had compromised himself. A week later, Fräulein Hedwig, with radiant smile, Fräulein Hedwig, with radiant smile, announced that the lieutenant of her affection were coming to Heidelberg with his father and mother. The lieutenant. 陆军 yeah, lieutenant.
Lieutenant.
Lieutenant. I prefer this. Laugh. That's so ridiculous. So, this pronunciation is American pronunciation. 陆军中尉 of her affection were coming, of her affections, that of her affections was coming. Affection. Of her affections. Why affections? Of her affections was coming to Heidelberg with his father and mother, exhausted by the im- im- importunity of their son and touched by the jewelry which father offered. Exhausted by the importunity, importunity, import, 进口 importunity,
Importunity.
Let's see, import, 纠缠 import, importune,
Importune.
importunity, importunity. Where we importune, 纠缠 importunity. Exhausted by the importunity of their son and touched by the jewelry which, let's see, jewelry, 嫁妆哦，专门这个词是 jewelry 啊
Dowry.
，dowry 啊
Dowry.
以后
Dowry.
no R here, dowry. I need to be careful. Dowry, 嫁妆 I think 嫁妆 their son unattached by the dowry which Florid Edwig's father offered. The lieutenant's parents had consent to pass through Heidelberg 20th. The interview was satisfactory, and Floyd Edward had the satisfaction of showing her lover in the Steingarten to the whole of Frau Professor the silent old ladies who sat at the top of the table near the professor were in a flutter, and when Fraulein Hedwig said she was to go home at once for the formal engagement to take place, the Frau Professor, regardless of expense, said she would give a Maypole. Professor Erling prided himself on his skill in preparing this intoxicant 致醉的物质 ，intoxicant 酒类饮料。
intoxicant,
so 酒类饮料。酒类饮料 intoxicant. Professor Erlin prided himself on his skill in preparing this meant intoxicant. Erlin prepared himself on his skill in preparing this meant intoxicant, and after supper, the large bowl of Coke and soda. 没有饱了。Let's see. No, no ale. 没饱了。没有。没饱了，没有。Okay. Let's see what it is. Oh, 没饱了。Professor Erlin prided himself on his skill in preparing the mild intoxicant, and after supper, the large bowl of Coke and soda. Large bowl of Coke and soda. 白葡萄酒。哦，白葡萄酒。白葡萄酒。After supper, the large bowl of Coke and soda with scented herb flowed in it, and the wild strawberry was placed with solemnity on the round table. Was placed with solemnity. 严肃的 solemnity 庄严的 solemnity solemnity
solemnity,
solemnity
solemnity, solemnity,
哦，我觉得庄重的、正式的，或者 the scent herb floating in it, and the white strawberry was placed with solemnity on the round table in the drawing room. Fraulein Anna teased Philip about the departure of his lady love, and he felt very uncomfortable and rather melancholy. Melancholy. We learned it. Melancholy.
melancholy,
Melancholy.
melancholy, melancholy,
Melancholy. You feel very uncomfortable and rather melancholy. Fraulein Hedwig sang several songs. Fraulein Anna played the wedding march, and the professor sang Die Watch am Ring. Amid all this jollification, Philip paid little attention to the new arrival. Amid all this jollification, Philip paid little attention to the new arrival. They had sat opposite one another at supper, but Philip was chattering busily with Philip was chattering busily with Fraulein Hedwig, and the stranger, knowing no German, had eaten his food in silence. Philip, observing that he wore a pale blue tie, and had on that account taken a sudden dislike to him. He was a man of 26, uh, very hair, with long very hair through which he passed his hand frequently with a careless gesture. Passed his hand frequently with careless gesture. His eyes were large and blue, but the blue was very pale, and they looked rather tired already. He was clean shaven. She was clean shaven, and his mouth, notwithstanding its thin lips, was well shaped. Pro, Pro, Pauline Anna took an interest in phy, in physio 面相，肯定是的。physio physiognomy 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 面相学 physiognomy physiognomy
Physiognomy.
哦，没有歌
Physiognomy.
歌不发音 physiognomy Physiognomy was well shaped. Pauline Anna took an interest in physiognomy, and she made Philip notice afterward how finely shaped was his skull. Pauline Anna took an interest in physiognomy, and she made Philip notice afterward how finely shaped was his skull, and how weak was the lower part of his face. Took an interest in physiognomy, and she made Philip notice afterward how finely shaped was his skull, and how weak was the lower part of his face. The head, she remarked, was the head of a thinker, but the jaw lacked character. Fraulein Anna foredoomed to a spinster's life. Foredoomed to a spinster life, with his high and long misshapen nose, laid great stress upon character. Let's see. Foredom. What's foredom? 注定。
Foredoom.
Foredoom to a 注定 a spinster 老处女 OK 注定 Really Foredoom a spinster's life 老处女 Foredoomed to a spinster life with his high cheekbone and large misshapen nose. Misshapen. 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 Misshape. Shapen.
Misshapen. Misshapen.
Shape. That makes sense. Misshapen nose. 奇形怪状的 misshapen nose laid great stress upon character. While they talked of him, he stood a little apart from the others, watching the noisy party with a good-humored but faintly supercilious expression. Supercilious.
Supercilious.
We learned this one. Supercilious. Supercilious. Go. Oh. Oh no. Go. Oh. The supercilious expression. He was tall she was tall and slim. He held himself with elaborate grace. Weeks. One of the American students, seeming him alone, went up and 名字叫 Weeks. Okay. Weeks. One of the American students, seeing him alone, went up and began to talk to him. The pair were oddly contrasted. Contrasted. The pair were oddly contrasted. The American, very neat in his black coat and pepper and salt trousers, thin and dried up, with something of ecclesiastical and action, with something of ecclesiastical and action already in his manner, in his loose tweed suit, large-limbed and slow of gesture. How? The American, very neat in his black coat, and pepper so thin and dried up, with some of ecclesiastical.
ecclesiastical, ecclesiastical,
ecclesiastical,
ecclesiastical, ecclesiastical,
神职的，教会的。action 有高 action
unction,
有高虚情假意。哦，I think 虚情假意更虚情假意。教会的虚伪的。With something of ecclesiastical, unction already in his manner, and the Englishman in his loose tweed suit. 粗话女 tweed suit, large length, and slow of gesture. Let's see. Watch this. 奇怪的对照，穿戴整洁，黑外套，焦颜色的裤子，长得又瘦又干瘪，举止中带有点牧师的热忱，动作迟钝，宽松的花呢服，四肢发达 ，large limbed and slow of gesture. I don't know, with something of already in his manner. 那种虚伪的牧师的热忱。他是个牧师吗？ I don't think so. Okay, we'll see. This paragraph, the American very neat in his black coat and pepper and salt trousers, thin and dried up, with something of ecclesiastical and unction already in his manner, and the Englishman in his loose tweed suit, large-limbed and slow of gesture. Philip didn't speak to the newcomer till next day. They found themselves alone on the balcony. They found themselves alone on the balcony of the drawing room before dinner. Harvard addressed him. You are English, aren't you? Yes. Is the food always as bad it was last night? It's always about the same. Beastly, isn't it? Beastly. Philip had found nothing wrong with the food at all, and in fact had eaten it in large quantity with appetite, large quantity enjoyment, but he didn't want to show himself a person of so little discrimination as to think a dinner good which another thought which another thought execrable. Execrable.
execrable, execrable,
Execrable. Fraulein Tackle's visit to England made it necessary for her sister to do more in the house, and he couldn't often spare the time for long walks. And and Fraulein Fraulein Cecilia Fraulein Cecilia, with her long plait of fair hair and her little snub-nosed face, had of late shown a certain disinclination for society. Fraulein Hedwig was gone, and Weeks, the American, who generally accompanied them on their rambles, had set out for a tour of South Germany. Philip was left a good deal to himself. Hayward sought his acquaintance, but Philip had an unfortunate trait, from shyness or from some atavistic inheritance of the cave drawer. He always disliked people on first acquaintance, and it was not till he became used to them that he got over his first impression. It made him difficult to accept. He received Harvard's at once very shyly, and when Harvard asked him one day to go for a walk, he accepted only because he could not think of a civil excuse. The American who generally accompanied them on their ramble 闲逛 on their rambles had set out for a tour of South Germany. Philip was left a great deal to himself. Harvard sought his acquaintance, but Philip had an unfortunate trait 特点 unfortunate shyness or from some atavistic 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 atavistic
atavistic,
版组 inheritance of the cave door. He always disliked people. This is so funny. Had an unfortunate from shyness or from some atavistic inheritance of Dave of cave draw dollar. I want to say the dweller.
dweller,
I have to, you know, copy this pronunciation all the time. Dweller. Why I can't say it uh, correctly? Dweller. Inheritance of the cave dweller. He always disliked people on first acquaintance, and it was not till he became used to them. He always disliked people on first acquaintance, and it was not till he got over his first expression. It made him difficult to access. Access. He received Edward advanced very shyly, and when Howard, not Edward, Howard, and when Howard asked him one day to go for a walk, he accepted only because he could not think of a civil excuse. He made his usual apology, angry with himself for the flushing cheeks he could not control, and trying to carry it off with a laugh. I'm afraid I can't walk very fast. Good heaven, good heaven, I don't walk for a vigor. 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 Wo- Vigor. I don't walk for a vigor. I don't walk for a vigor. Let's see. Okay. I don't walk. Good heaven. Good heaven. Good heaven, I don't walk for a vigil. I prefer to stroll. I don't walk for a vigil. 打赌 maybe not. I don't walk for a vigil. I don't walk for a vigil. I don't walk for a vigil. I prefer to stroll. Don't you remember the chapter in Marius where Peter talks of the gentle exercise of walking as the best incentive to conversation, as the best incentive to conversation, at the best incentive.
Incentive.
In 动机 gentle exercise of walking as the best incentive to conversation. Philip was a good listener. Philip was a good listener, though he often thought of clever things to say. It was seldom. It was seldom till. It was seldom till after the opportunity to say them had passed. But Hayward was communicative. Communicative. Anyone more experienced than Philip might have thought he liked to hear himself talk. Philip was a good listener, though he often thought of clever things to say, It was seldom till after the opportunity to say them had passed. But Hayward was communicative. Anyone more experienced than Philip might have thought he liked to hear himself talk. His supercilious attitude, his supercilious attitude impressed Philip. He could not yet being awed by a man who faintly despite so many things which Philip had looked upon as almost sacred. Faintly desperate so many things which Philip had looked upon as sacred. He cast down the fetish of exercise. 几点上课？ Okay. Oh, what do you want for your? Okay. Fetish,偶像 fetish. He cast down the fetish 迷恋崇拜物 of exercise, damning with the contemptuous word pot hunter all those who devote themselves to its various forms. And Philip did not realize that he was merely putting up in its stead the other fetish of culture. He cast down the fetish of exercise, damned with the contemptuous word. Pot hunters, all those who devote themselves in its various forms. And Philip did not realize that he was merely putting up in its stead the other fetish of culture. 菲利普不仅怀着敬畏的心情称赞这样的人，他比起许多菲利普近乎神圣的东西，他对运动不盲目崇拜，把热心于各种运动的人视为以奖品为唯一目的的运动员，没有意识到他这只不过是一种迷信代替另一种迷信罢了。He cast down the fetish of exercise, damning with contemptuous word pot hunter, all those who devote themselves to its various forms. And Philip didn't realize that he was merely putting up in its stead the other fetish of culture. Okay, I can't understand this sentence. He cast down. Spears of the